In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou amongst women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus. Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners, now and at the hour of our death. Amen. Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. We continue our reflection on the theme of repentance. Repentance means a new mind, a new heart, a new vision. Because the English word repentance comes from the Greek metanoia. And metanoia is in turn made up of two Greek words. The first is meta, which means beyond, and nous is the mind. So metanoia literally means to go beyond one's mind, to get a new way of looking. The old way is gone, and now the new has come. As a matter of fact, it is easier for our penance to say or to recite 3 Hail Marys and 1 Our Father than it is for us to look anew, to look at the sisters in my community in a new way, to look at my superior in a new way, to look at those in authority in a new way, to look at my ministry, my work, my apostolate, to look at those who I work with in a new way. That is challenging, because we prefer the usual way. We prefer our stereotypical way. We prefer the way that we are used to. So newness is really not easy to adopt to. And the repentance is calling us to this newness. And Jesus is calling us to this newness because God looks at us anew. 1 John chapter 4, verse 19. The first letter of John, chapter 4, verse 19, summarizes this very beautifully when John says there, we love because God loved us first. A very short verse, but a verse which we need to constantly keep in mind. We love because God first loved us. We can say, by adapting this verse, we look anew because God looks at us anew. We have mercy because God has mercy. It is God who takes the initiative. In Revelation chapter 3, verse 20, this is brought out very beautifully when Jesus says in that verse, behold, I stand at your door and knock. By standing at the door, Jesus is taking the initiative. By standing at the door, Jesus is taking the first step. And by knocking, Jesus is taking a risk. And the risk that Jesus takes by knocking is that I, who am in my home, can decide to ignore that knock. I can pretend that I have not heard that knock. Or I can open the door and I can tell him not to come in. I can say, you are disturbing me, stop knocking at my door. Or I can open my door and let him come in. And if I let him come in, he says, he will sit down to supper with me and me with him. And supper is the most intimate of communions, as intimate as the communion between a man and a woman. That is the meaning of this verse. And so therefore, he takes the initiative, he takes the risk, but the opening is up to me. The opening is totally my freedom. If I decide not to open, the door stays locked. And so today, I invite you to this new way of looking, because God has looked at you and keeps looking at you in a new way. Before I can talk about attitudes which build up community or which make up community, I want to tell you a story which I'm quite sure that most of you, if not all of you, would have heard. However, I want you to listen to this story in the context of what I am going to say to you in a few moments, namely the attitudes that we must develop in order to build community. Now, the story. A woman invited her friend to her home for a cup of tea. And the friend entered her home. As soon as her friend entered, she took her friend to the window to look out of the window into the neighbor's yard. And she looked out, the lady of the house, and she said to her friend whom she had invited, "Look at how dirty our neighbors are. They have washed their clothes and they have put them out to dry, but there are streaks on the clothes. They have not washed them thoroughly." The friend who had been invited came closer to the window, looked out and said to the lady of the house, "My dear, the streaks are not on the clothes, they are on your window." In other words, my way of looking determines what I see. The reality will remain the reality, but the interpretation of that reality will depend on me and how I decide to interpret. I can look at a glass that is half filled with water, and I can say the glass is half empty, or I can say the glass is half full. Now, the reality is that there is a glass in which half is water and half is not with water. However, the interpretation of that glass and the focus that I put depends on me. I can look at a white wall on which there is a black spot. And the reality is that there is a white wall and there is a black spot on the wall. And yet, my interpretation will determine how I look at the wall. I can take in the whiteness of the whole wall, or I can focus on the black spot in this white wall. It depends on how I look, and my perception will determine my interpretation. And so, the first attitude, as opposed to the attitude of I know, is the attitude of openness. And this openness, which I am suggesting, is on 3 levels. The first level is with regard to information, with regard to knowledge, with regard to things which I don't know. As religious, We are privileged to attend a retreat every year. Many of us as religious are also privileged to attend a number of seminars, a number of courses, a number of lectures, and a number of other points where we can get in a lot of information. So there are a variety of spiritual courses, there are a variety of theological courses, there are a variety of mental and physical courses, and we attend so many of them in our lives as religious that sometimes there is the danger that we might think we know everything. We might think there is nothing new that we can learn. Some of us are also privileged that the congregation sends us for what we would call higher studies, like the master's degree or the postgraduate degrees in a variety of fields, or the doctoral degree and the postdoctoral degree, and so on. Even postdoctoral students, notice, even postdoctoral students realize that even about that particular narrow area that they are studying, there is so much more that they need to learn. As a matter of fact, in the play Hamlet by William Shakespeare, there is a dialogue between Hamlet and his friend Horatio. And in one of the dialogues, Hamlet says to Horatio, "There are more things in heaven and on earth, Horatio, than are dreamt of in your philosophies." What does this statement mean? It means that there are many, many things that we still do not know. In our own situation, we have been boasting about the advancement of science and technology. We have been saying that we have sent men and women to the moon, we have explored space, and we have done so much of advancement in medical sciences and in all other areas of our lives. And yet, during this time, the last 2 years, we have been laid low, we have been captured, we have been held to ransom by a dead virus. This pandemic is a lesson in the fact that we must keep remembering one important thing, and that is, we do not know. All the doctors and scientists and all of them who have made such a detailed research about the COVID-19 pandemic keep coming back and saying, we do not know. There is still so much that we do not know. And so it ought to be a lesson for us. Ought to be a lesson for us that we can learn at any time. And we can learn at every time if we are open. I may have had the privilege of going very deep into a particular area of study, whether it is the sciences, whether it is the humanities, whether it is any other kind of studies. And sure, I do know a lot about that area, no doubt about it, because I've done specialized studies. And yet, if I have an opportunity to learn, then I can always learn. So that basic attitude of openness. I am open to new experiences. I am open to new learnings. My definition of a teacher is a learner. The day the teacher stops learning, that is the day the teacher stops being a teacher. The second level of openness is with regard to the members of my community. All too easily, I am able to read the minds of the members of my community. And then someone says to me, I know exactly what you're thinking. I ask them, What's in my pocket? If you cannot know something as basic as what's in my pocket, then how can you know something as intricate as what's in my mind? How can you know what I'm thinking? And so therefore, to impute thoughts to people is not fair to them. We do not know what they are thinking unless they tell us. And so, when I ask you what's in my pocket, the first thing that you might try to do is that you might try to guess. But whatever you say will still remain a guess. Now, what you could have done is, when I ask you what's in my pocket, you could have asked me what's in your pocket. And I would have told you. So when I tell you what's in my pocket because they are my pockets, then it will be the reality. However, if you try to guess, and even if that guess is more or less correct, it will still be a guess. And therefore, we need to be very, very careful when we are imputing thoughts to the members of our community. And if we want to impute thoughts, then what we must do is ask them, what were you thinking? We label members of our communities. And we tell the provincial that we do not want this member, we do not want that member, this one is too stubborn, this one is very rude, the other one is very loud, the other one is lazy. And I say, but they are our sisters. Can I encourage the lazy one to be less lazy? Can I reach out to the one who is stubborn? Can I reach out to the one who is rude? Because keep in mind, usually, naturally, no one wants to be stubborn or rude or lazy. They have become stubborn or rude or lazy or angry because of situations. Now, it is another story that the situation was not under their control. They could have controlled it. They could have responded differently. That is another story. Now they are stubborn according to you. Now they are rude according to you. Now they are angry according to you. Now they are lazy according to you. So as the superior of a community, I think it is your responsibility to encourage them out of their stubbornness, out of their rudeness, out of their anger, out of their laziness. Or else, why are you the superior? Suppose you were given members of the community, all of whom listened to your every word, all of whom were working with alacrity, all of whom were focused on the ministry. Where would be the challenge then for the superior? What would be the work of the superior? So I think that the work of the superior is to enhance the community as much as possible, and sometimes a particular system, especially those whom you consider stubborn or lazy or rude or angry, they are the ones who possibly need more of your attention and your time than the others. So what you have to do is, you have to reach out to them. And we reach out to them with love. There is no point in labeling a person. You may have had an experience, or you may have had many experiences of the person's laziness or of the person's rudeness. Many years ago, I was the superior of a particular community. On the 31st of December, we had a prayer service in our community. And we were about 15 in that community. So I called all the fathers and brothers and I said to them, we will sit in a circle. And I gave each member of the community a sheet with his name written on it in bold. And I said to the person after the opening prayer that we will pass the sheet to the right of us, and the one on the right who sees the name on the sheet will write at least one positive quality about the one whose name is on the sheet. You can write more if you like, but at least one positive quality about the person whose name you see. At the beginning of that prayer service, one member of the community said, I am not going to write about anyone. In the moment, I was taken aback. But then I said to him, I said, sure, you're free to write, you're free not to write. But we will write about you because we want to write about you. And true to his word, he never wrote about anybody. And true to our word, we wrote about him. Believe me, at the end of that prayer service, she was looking at his sheet more intently than anyone else. Why? He needed that belligerence, that attitude of saying, I will not write about anyone, was only an external. Inside, he is hurting. Inside, he is frightened. Inside, he is weak. So we appeal to that fright and that fear. We appeal to that weakness. We don't react to that weakness. We respond to it. And in this response, hopefully, we are able to draw him out. Supposing I would have reacted as a superior and said, if you don't want to write about anybody, don't be in this prayer service. It would have made matters worse. You see, but I could have reacted in that manner. If you're not writing about anyone, please don't be part of this community. Don't be part of this prayer service. The provincial, I could have called the provincial and told him he doesn't want to write about anybody. Please take him away from my community. It would be very easy to do that. It would be very, very easy to do that. But that is not the way. That would not be the way Jesus would have reacted, even with the betrayer, even with the denier, even the other 10 who run away. He does not respond in that manner. He responds to them by challenging them to rise to a higher level. And the third area of openness is the area where I look at a person because she or he belongs to a particular place. All these Malayalis, they are always like that. These Tamilians, they will never change. These Bengalurians, the less said, the better. These Goans, what can you say about them? These tribals, forget, don't even talk about them. These Anglo-Indians, these East Indians, these whoever it might be. I hope I've not forgotten anyone. But this is how we label people from a community. And so therefore, today is the day to adopt, I would say, the attitude of Jesus, which I will suggest to you from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 22, verses 61 and 62. Luke, chapter 22, verses 61 and 62. This particular text is found only in the Gospel of Luke. It is a scene where Jesus had told Peter earlier that before the cock crows, Peter would have denied Jesus 3 times. Jesus had told him about it. And the reality is that Peter does deny Jesus. Only Luke has this particular verse in Luke chapter 22, verse 61. And Jesus turned and looked at Peter. Luke does not tell us what kind of a look it was. He only tells us Jesus turned and looked at Peter. If I were to ask you, what kind of a look do you think it would have been? This is what you might possibly answer. First, Jesus was looking at Peter and saying, I told you. Did I not tell you? I told you. This is what you are thinking. you need to change your thinking, because it means you have not really listened to what I have said so far about Jesus. You need to change your thinking about Jesus. You need to change your thinking about yourself, because you might seem to be a person who is, in a way, a prophetess of doom, a foreteller of doom. And Jesus was not a prophet of doom. Jesus was a prophet of hope. And so therefore, it cannot be that he has told or looked at Peter and said through that, look, I told you you would do that and you did it. No. Another person might say, Jesus looked at Peter with compassion, looked at Peter with forgiveness, looked at Peter with empathy, looked at Peter with love. Beautiful, very nice, good, good. But sometimes, and we must keep in mind that sometimes forgiveness can be condescending. When I tell someone, I forgive you, you hurt me, I am being superior to the person, or I think I'm superior because I have forgiven that person. If I told you that no one actually can hurt you unless you give them the permission to hurt you, where is the question of forgiveness? You have allowed someone, your expectations have allowed someone to hurt you. You expected a particular sister to behave in a particular manner toward you. You expected a particular sister or another person to say a particular word to you, and the person has not. So you're upset. You're angry. You are in hospital and you expected your companion to come and visit you in hospital, but your companion never came. So you are upset with your companion, and your companion comes to you and says, oh, I'm so sorry. I was so busy. I was so caught up. You say, okay, I forgive you. That doesn't mean that you are superior to her. You see, forgiveness is condescending. Why should she have come to see you? Why did you expect her to come to see you for you to feel that hurt anyway? Did you not know that she was busy? And sometimes worse is when we realize that the person who we expected to come and are angry because he or she did not come to see us was sick, him or herself. So when we are discharged from the hospital, we realize that our companion whom we thought has not come to see us is still in hospital in another ward. How does that make you feel? So you cannot be hurt, and therefore there is no need to forgive if you're not hurt. So the third interpretation, and this is my interpretation, Jesus was looking at Peter and telling him, Peter, if I was in your place, I would do the same. I would also deny. Jesus does not place himself higher than Peter. He does not place himself lower than Peter. He places himself on the same level as Peter. He accepts that weakness of Peter as his own. There is no condescension here. There is no sympathy here. There is equality. There is oneness. There is making myself as the other person, putting myself in the shoes of the other person. This is what Jesus did, and that's why the other synoptics also talk about Peter weeping bitterly. Luke is the only one who makes the connection between the look of Jesus and Peter weeping bitterly. It is likely that if Jesus had looked at him and told him, I told you so, it's likely Peter would not really have felt like weeping. He says, okay, I made a mistake. You were right. So now what? That's why if I can look at my sisters in my community, whether I'm superior or whether I'm a member of the community, if I can look at the sisters in my community and say to myself, if I was in their place, I would have done the same. I would have made the same mistake. I would have made the same error. So is it possible for me to look in that manner. The second attitude is what I call Carefrontation. In the first letter to the Corinthians, chapter 12, verses 12 to 31, Paul gives us a very beautiful analogy of our communities. He applies it to the church, but we can apply it to our communities. We can apply it to our province and then to each individual community. And what can we apply from this chapter and verses? We apply that Christ is the head of the body. So it is the analogy of the body. And Christ, no matter whether it is the province, no matter whether it is a community, no matter where we are, no matter who we are, Christ remains the head of that body. Now, of the body, each one of us is a different part. So the first thing that we must realize is that there is variety. And in a way, as somebody said, variety is indeed the spice of life. If all of us in the congregation of the CJ sisters were in the same mold, we were to look the same, we were to behave the same, we were to talk in the same manner, we were of the same height, we were of the same length, we were of the same stoutness or leanness, what would be the challenge? What would be different? So each one of us, Paul says, is a member of the body, and we are different. The eye is not the ear. The ear is not the tongue is not the chin, and the chin is not the feet. Each one of us is different, and because we are different, we are also unique. They're also special. Just as I am special, everyone else is also special. So the first thing we must keep in mind is that we are different, and that is what makes our congregation such a beautiful congregation, the variety. So we can be united, we can be one even in our diversity. We are of different heights, we are of different languages, we are of different places, and yet we have come together. We are united despite our diversity for a common purpose, for the purpose of the Lord, for the kingdom of the Lord. The second point which he makes in these verses is this, that even though each member is unique and special, each member is also indispensable. Imagine, you and I are blessed, at least most of us are blessed with two eyes. Imagine if we had only one eye. It should not be as easy to see as it is with two eyes. If we were unable to hear, it should not be so easy to understand as if we were able to hear. And in other words, to realize that each member is such an important member. Sometimes I try this exercise for my spiritual growth, and it is for about 4 or 5 hours every day. I try to say to myself, I have no thumbs. Imagine, I have no thumbs. So let me do these morning chores that I usually do, whether writing, whether reading, whether talking, whether using my computer, using my phone, or the other work that I do. Let me do it without using my thumbs. That gives me an indication of how important my thumb is. And sometimes I cover one of my eyes and I say, now let me do this 1 hour with looking at the world, looking at my work, doing what I have to do with only one eye. It's not so easy, because sometimes they say, no, I cannot do it. I need to see with 2 eyes. So that is the challenge. So we can see in our own bodies how important every single member is, and not only the eyes, but even each eye, not only the ears, but even each ear. As a matter of fact, There are some people who are hard of hearing in one particular ear. So therefore, when you are talking with them, they will automatically turn to you to that particular ear through which they can hear. So you see, it's not just the ears which hear, but each ear which can also hear. So even within those parts of the body which are in pairs, we can see that each of those is also special. And I've shown you that in the question of the hand and the thumb. And sometimes I do another exercise. I just look at the palm of my hand and I notice that I have 4 fingers and 1 thumb. What I notice is that each of these fingers of mine, which belong to my body, are so unique. The last finger is not as the middle, the ring finger, is not as the middle finger, is not as the forefinger, is not as the thumb. If this is such a variety in my own body, and if I can accept it, then what prevents me from accepting the members of my community who are different? And because they are different, it is such a beautiful community, such a variety. In this context, I want to appeal to the superiors with special regard to the younger sisters. In many communities, I think the younger sisters are not given as much encouragement as they ought to be given. Too often, the fear of the report that will be sent to either the junior mistress if they are juniors, to the tertian mistress if they are tertians, to the novice mistress if they are novices, is creating a lot of fear. And this fear which is created leads to their living artificial lives, living lives which are not real. They're just trying to please you. So yes, all the juniors are expected to be in the chapel at 5:30 in the morning, and the juniors, because of fear, will be there in the chapel at 5:30 in the morning. But each one is dozing. Each one is thinking about something else if they are awake, and hardly anyone is praying. Then why are they in the chapel? Because they are frightened. If they are not in the chapel, a report will be written about them. Have we at any time reached out to these younger sisters? Have we spent time with them? Have we talked with them? When I was superior of a particular community in which there were many scholastics doing their college studies, I would have a meeting with every single one at least once a month and would tell them that they could come to me even more often if they needed it. In the meeting which I had with them, the first thing that I would do after a short prayer is to share with them all the positive qualities that I had noticed about them, enhancing them, boosting them. I would not tell lies in a way. If they didn't have a quality, I would not say they had it, but as much as is possible, I would try to make the first part tremendously positive, so to boost this young Jesuit. And then after that, I would talk with him about the challenges. Notice, I don't call difficulties, problems, hurdles, obstacles. I like to avoid those words, and I prefer to use the word challenges instead of weaknesses or areas for improvement. That is also a good term. Areas for improvement, or the challenges that I noticed that he has. So for example, maybe he was coming too late for meals. Maybe he was not seen in the chapel often. And then I would discuss with him what is the reason. What exactly did he think of the Eucharist? Why was he not present? I would discuss with him. And sometimes in the discussion, or many times I would say, I would learn so many things myself. which I did not know, because these are how the youngsters think. And so he would share with me his impression. Then I would share with him what I thought about his impression, not necessarily accepting whatever he said, but telling him by the end of the meeting that he needed to do some things which I thought needed to be done by a Jesuit in training. And then we would end the meeting by asking for our Blessed Mother's intention, and he would go happy having met me. The next month it would be again, and the next month again. And so therefore I could see that there was a marked improvement in them. They were trying to be better Jesuits. They were trying to be men of the marches. When I had to send a report to their provincials, because they were from different provinces, I would write first the report, and again focus mainly on the positive, and then the challenges which I still felt. And before sending it to the provincial, I would send it to this particular Jesuit. He would see his report. I cannot understand why in so many religious congregations, the one about whom the report is written does not see the report. What sense does it make? What sense does it make? For me, that is gossip, that is backbiting. And if the provincial will not take up this particular report along with the people who have written it and the person about whom the report is written. Now, sometimes to maintain the question of confidentiality, the provincial need not have a combined meeting. The provincial need not give the names of those who have written the report. But when the provincial receives the report, she must not automatically believe the report because it has been written by a particular superior or the superior of that particular sister. What she has to do, she has to clarify. But unfortunately, and I say this with pain in my heart, many provincials whom I know find great joy in reading the negatives about their own sisters. I'm saying honestly, I've seen this personally, that they find such great joy, because hardly you will find a provincial who will talk with the superior, but why is there so much negative about this sister? How can you tell me this particular point or that particular point, these allegations that you're making, she's stubborn, she's rude, she's this. Now, these are interpretations. I am not saying that they are not true. But the provincials lap it up, because then they have a stick with which to beat this junior. That's not the way of religious life. The way of religious life is to enhance this sister. I would like to believe if this young woman has come to the Lord and has given up by coming to the Lord the privilege which even Mary was not asked to give up, namely the privilege of bringing a child into the world, then why should we assume that she is not committed? And if for whatever reason she loses some direction in her life, is it not our duty to bring her back on track? Are we judges only? Surely the superior has the responsibility to write the report. Surely the superior has the responsibility to correct when required. But I say, correct when required, encourage always. Even your correction can be through encouragement. Instead of saying, don't do this, is it possible to say, do this? So give them an alternative. Don't doze in the chapel. Don't doze in the chapel. Now the poor girl has hardly slept at night. So you can say, tomorrow, go to sleep early. Let us see if it helps with your dozing. So not say, don't doze in the chapel. Are you getting enough sleep? Ask the question. Ask the question. A person who's dozing in the chapel, means that she is not present there. Her mind is in a different place. Her body is in a different place. And that is why she will doze. That is why she will be bored. That is why she will yawn. These are all manifestations. They are not the root. The root is something else. And so therefore, superiors, I believe, have a responsibility to carefront their sisters, and provincials have a responsibility to carefront the superior. Many years ago, the bishop of a particular diocese wrote me an email and said to me, Father, there is this seminarian of mine whom you have taught in the seminary for the last 3 years. He has a great regard for you, and I want to ask you for a favor. And the favor is this: can you take him under your wing for 1 year? Because I have asked him to leave the seminary after his 3rd year of theology. I will not ordain him a deacon, because there have been reports about him from his rector, which are negative reports, and from his parish priest, when he was doing his ministry, that there are also negative. I wrote to the bishop saying, Bishop, I know this boy very well, and I found him a very good student. I have taught him for 3 years. Bishop, before I take this boy under my wing, who will be working outside, I want you to do me 2 favors. First, write to the rector of the seminary and ask the rector, how many times did he call this seminarian and talk with him about the challenges that he wrote in his letter? And then I said, the second thing I want you to do is write to the parish priest also the same letter. The bishop replied to me. He says, Father, I cannot do that because I've accepted the reports as coming from authority, and I've already asked this seminarian to leave. It gives you an indication of how we are so easily accepting the negatives. To make a long story short, I took this boy, seminarian, under my wing for that 1 year. He would come and see me once every month, and I would challenge him and encourage him and challenge him and encourage him. Believe me when I say, today in that diocese, I've been following him up. He's an exceptional priest, and the bishop cannot do without him. There's a new bishop, of course, because that bishop died. This bishop cannot do without him. So my sisters, it is the case that as humans sometimes we prefer to see the faults of others, because then it makes us superior to them. If they have got faults, okay, we are superior to them because they have got so many faults. And provincials unfortunately think the same. So it is a request to the superiors and to the provincials. Don't automatically focus on the negative. Don't automatically believe the negative report. Think about what they are saying. Check with them what they have said. Carefront the superior herself about the report which she has written. Ask for instances when she says she is stubborn, when she says she is rude, when she says she is angry, when she says she is lazy. Ask for instances, because we have this term, she's a very lazy person. So maybe once you may have asked her to do something and she did not do it, so she becomes lazy. That is called moving from the particular to the universal, which is a logical fallacy. However, I also want to say to the youngsters, you need, my sisters, to keep your focus on the Lord. It is also true that many youngsters today are also losing their focus. They need to bring it back on the Lord. And if the focus is on the Lord, then it will be seen in your life. It will be seen in your presence in the chapel. It will be seen in your participation in the Eucharist. It will be seen in your participation in your ministry, and the manner in which you do your ministry. It will be seen. And when it is seen, then the superior does not really need to write a negative report. So you also, young sisters, have a responsibility to continue to keep your gaze on the Lord. Everyone else, no matter how inspiring they are all clay models. We will fail. We are frail. We are weak. We are sinners. The one Lord whom you have pledged to give your life to, that Lord remains the same, and you keep your gaze on him. The third, as opposed to the martyr complex, is the attitude of free will. Free will means I do what I do from my heart, from my inner being. I am not compelled by any situation. I'm not compelled by anyone, but I do it because I enjoy doing what I am doing. I do it because I want to do it, not because somebody has forced me, or because somebody is watching, or because somebody is going to send a report about how I did it. That's not my reason. If that is my reason, then my doing will not be efficacious. In chapter 8, verse 31 of the Gospel of Mark, in chapter 9, verse 31, and in chapter 10, verses 32 to 34, 3 times, all in the Gospel of Mark. They are also in Matthew and Luke, but 3 times in the Gospel of Mark, Jesus says, the Son of Man must suffer and die. Must. And you might say, what does must mean? Must means compelling. So who's compelling you? You ask Jesus. Who is compelling you? No. He says, no one is compelling me. Then why do you use the Son of Man must suffer? Because must in English is the Greek dei, D-E-I, dei. And dei is what is known as a theological passive, which therefore is interpreted in the following manner. The Son of Man will go to die because God has ordained it, and because the Son of Man has accepted it. When you and I joined religious life, we knew after 1 year, in our case after 2 years, that we were going to make a commitment to the Lord of poverty, of chastity, and of obedience. In your case, it was a temporary profession for a couple of years until you finished your tertianship, and then you made your final profession. You made your permanent, but till then it was temporary. And for you, those who are juniors among you, it is still temporary. A few years, 1 year, you bow poverty, chastity, obedience. The point is this, that we bow what we bow from our hearts. This is what the congregation is saying to us. If you want to be a member of our congregation, then you must bow poverty, chastity, and obedience. If you cannot, no problem. You cannot be a member of our congregation, no problem. Now, when you and I made that vow, made those evangelical counsels, we were making a pledge. We were saying, yes, we are going to live this way, not because anyone has forced us. Nobody is forcing us. And that's why all the congregations will ask you to write down the formula of your vows in your own handwriting, not on computer. And then when you write it down in your own handwriting, to sign below that this is what you are saying as an individual. So when you do that, you are saying, I want to live a poor life. I want to live a chaste life, and I want to live an obedient life. So there is no compulsion. And therefore, whatever that life entails, I will not. Like Martha in Luke chapter 10, verses 38 to 42, I will not let, like Martha, let my gaze fall on Mary. No, my gaze should be on 2 other things when I'm working. It should be on my work primarily, and if it has to be on someone else, it must be on the Lord. In the case of Martha, we noticed that she had 3 options. The first option was that she could focus on her work. And if she focused on her work, she would neither be looking at the Lord, nor would she be looking at her sister. So she would not know then that her sister was sitting at the feet of the Lord, and she would not make allegations about her sister. Her work was her main priority. She focuses on the work and she finishes the work, and then she can go and sit at the feet of the Lord. But Martha does not focus on her work. Martha could have focused on Jesus, and Jesus, maybe by the look that he gave her, would have said to Martha, Martha, focus on your work now, not on me. That's what Jesus would have said. And Jesus tells us that sometimes when we are involved in our ministry, he says, come on, do the work well, do what you have to do with all your ability, and then after that you focus on it. So Jesus would possibly have redirected Martha to her work if Martha had looked at him. That is the second choice Martha had. But she didn't take the first, she didn't take the second. Then what did Martha do? She took the third choice. And what was that? She looked at her sister. And looking at her sister disillusioned her, because she interpreted her sister's action as passivity. She interpreted her sister's action as not helping her when she needed to be helped. And the Lord did not need that dish at all. So who are you doing the work for? For whom are you cooking? For whom are you ministering? Why are you engaged in the ministry? Is it for your own satisfaction and to be known as a wonderful host? If the Lord does not want to eat, then what is the point in preparing all of that? So therefore, when we look at the Marys in our community, who we interpret are only sitting at the feet of the Lord and not doing what they have to do, it would be most likely that our gaze has been shifted from our work, our gaze is shifted from the Lord. And so therefore, we need that free will. To be sure, not anyone in any community, except if they are retired now and they don't have any specific ministry, the others cannot be sitting in the chapel the whole time. No. Supposing you are a teacher in a school and classes have begun, you can't be sitting in a chapel or in the chapel when the classes are on and saying, no, I want to focus on the Lord. No, there the Lord becomes present to you in your class, in the children that you are teaching, in the PowerPoint presentation that you have prepared, in the clarity that you're going to give your class with. There the Lord is present. If I were to say to you during this retreat, sisters, the Lord is calling me to the chapel, it's time for my talk, but I'll go and spend some time in the chapel, that would not be the way I would give a retreat. And so therefore, each one of us needs. However, I'm not going to look at the members of my community and say about them, they are not giving any retreats. I am the only one giving a retreat. They are relaxing. They are not working, and so on. No, my gaze is on the retreat at the moment. Later, my gaze is on the Lord. And after I finish my gaze on the Lord, he will direct my gaze once again to the work that I must do. And so therefore, Jesus, through the three passion and resurrection predictions, teaches us the meaning of free will. We do what we have to do because we are convinced it must be done. I don't do something because somebody else is not doing it or because somebody else is doing it. No, when there is compulsion, there is no depth in what we are doing. If we do it from the freedom of our hearts, then there is both an efficiency and also an efficacy. Both are required in our ministry. The fourth attitude is that of pushing together, not pulling apart. And I will be capable of pushing together when I know where my authority ends. If I am a member of a community, my authority in a meeting that is called by the superior would be to make suggestions. Even if I am the superior of a community, my role in a meeting called by the provincial would be to make suggestions. In a local community, it is often the superior who makes the decision. After listening to all the members of the community, the superior makes the decision. In a province, it is the provincial, after listening to all the superiors, to all the directors of works, the provincial will make the decision. So each one of us needs to know our role. Now, sometimes a provincial finishes her term and she becomes either a member of the community or she becomes the superior in another community. Then her role changes. Then her authority now as superior ends when she makes a suggestion to the provincial, even though she may have been provincial before. If she's a member of the community, her authority ends when she makes a suggestion to the superior in a meeting called by the superior, even though she was superior, possibly of the same community before. So each one of us is given a role. We are either member of a community, we are either provincial, or we are superior. Based on these roles, we must respond. Now, sometimes in communities, there can be a challenge between what is known as the director of a particular work. For example, the superior is different from the principal in some communities. The treasurer of the school is different from the principal in many communities, and so on. So each one of these has a different role. There is the treasurer, there is the principal, and there is the superior. Many cases, the superior is the manager of the school. The principal is what is known as the executive officer. That means the principal does the work of execution, of doing the job. The manager is meant to oversee, but more than oversee, the manager is meant to encourage the principal, is meant to push up the principal, is meant to enhance the principal, not to interfere with the principal. In some cases, managers regard themselves as above the principal and interfere too much. In other cases, managers are so nervous of the principal that they don't go to the school at all. Both are not the best. Both are not the best. What we need to do is we need to find a balance. Can the principal, the treasurer, and the manager, the superior, work together in harmony? Supposing the manager, the superior, realizes the principal is feeling a little threatened with my presence, I back off a little bit. I back off a little bit and I say, okay, I won't go so often. I can feel, I can think she's feeling. If I'm not so sure, then I have a meeting with her. Sister, how often do you want to come to the school? Do you want me to take up this or that? You let me know. And whatever you feel is okay, I will take it up. So we can have that dialogue. Because it's not always possible for the principal to be happy with every manager, nor would every manager be happy with every principal. So we can find ways of working together so that the teachers in the school, the children in the school notice that there is a harmony. The sisters are working so well together. The sisters are all present. So in our community here at the Infant Jesus Shrine, Nashik, all of us, whenever there is a program in the school, we try to cancel all our other programs, except if we are out of Nashik, we try to cancel all our other local programs and attend the program in the school. Whether it is flag hoisting for Independence Day, whether it is Teachers' Day celebration, whether it is a school elocution competition, whether it is some other program, the birthday of the principal and so on, all of us as Jesuits try to attend that as much as is possible to show to the school teachers and to the students that there is a synchrony among us. We have not left the manager, who's another Jesuit, we have not left him to do the work by himself. We are supporting him, we are there with him. And occasionally, each one of us is asked to take a seminar for the teachers, to take a conference for the teachers, which we do. So the teachers also see us and they know that we are part of the school, even though our main work might be in the shrine and in the church. So this is how we need to work together, because pulling one another down is not going to help at all. John chapter 21, verse 3 is a text which I would suggest for your reflection. And yes, it is only one verse, but there is a big background to this verse, and so I will give you the background. The background is this. In chapter 20, verses 19 to 23 of the Gospel of John, Jesus has appeared to the disciples when Thomas was not present. And there, Jesus has given them peace. He has shown them his hands and his side. He has breathed on them, and he has given them a fantastic commission. He has given them a mission. The second time, in chapter 20 of the Gospel of John, verses 24 to 29, he appears a second time. That is when Thomas is present. So twice he has appeared to them. And now we are in chapter 21. You would imagine that in chapter 21, the disciples who have received the breath of the Lord, who have received this commission from the Lord, will be going out and charging the whole world with the love of the Lord. But that's not the case. In chapter 21, we find that they are in a boat at Lake Tiberias. And Peter, the leader of the group, says, I am going fishing. I'm going fishing. Now you notice, there are 6 others. Why 6 others? Because John wants to indicate this is the perfect community. Because 7 is the perfect number. So John says, there is Simon Peter, there is Thomas, there is Nathaniel, there are the sons of Zebedee, and 2 other disciples. So the naming of the 2 other disciples, whom he does not name, is to tell us there are 7. Very clearly, he gives us a hint that there are 7. Simon Peter, Thomas, Nathaniel, the 2 sons of Zebedee, and 2 others make exactly 7. So John's intention is to say this is the perfect community. Now, who is Nathaniel? Nathaniel is not mentioned by the other Gospels. The character is found only in John. At the beginning of John's Gospel, in chapter 1, verse 50, Nathaniel meets Jesus. But before he meets Jesus, Philip tells Nathaniel, we have found the Messiah, Jesus of Nazareth. And Nathaniel knows his scriptures. That's one quality of Nathaniel. Second, Nathaniel is unafraid to state his mind clearly. He tells Philip what he has to tell him. But despite knowing his scriptures, despite being unafraid, he is also open. He knows the scriptures because it is true that nothing good could come out of Nazareth. Very clearly, none of the scriptures of the Old Testament even talk about anything good coming from Nazareth. So he is clear, he is right. Not only does he know scriptures well and interprets them correctly, but he is unafraid to say it, and he says as much to Philip. However, despite his knowledge, despite his intellectual ability, despite his fearlessness, he is also open. So when Jesus encounters him, or rather he encounters Jesus, Jesus looks at him and says, you are an Israelite in whom there is no guile. I saw you under the fig tree. And he's so taken up, Rabbi. So he changes his mind. Even though he knows the scriptures, even though he states his opinion, he is willing to change his mind if he can see that there is a need to change the mind. So his openness is important. So here, we can assume the same of Nathaniel, that he knows that the Lord has been there, the Lord has spoken, and he possibly, in this meeting which Peter has, after he says, I'm going fishing, he possibly would have told Peter, Peter, what fishing? The Lord has given us such a commission. What do you mean by you're going fishing? He would have made a suggestion, but he's a member of the community. Peter is the provincial. He's a superior. He's not a provincial. So he would have made his suggestion. And Peter would have listened I would have said, I'm going fishing. And then the other 6, who may have been intellectuals in their own right, James and John, the sons of Zebedee, very charged up men, all of them without exception say, because Peter is the superior, because Peter is the provincial, we will go with you. That is what is called realizing where my authority ends. I, as Nathaniel, I, as a son of Zebedee, I, as Thomas, I, as the other disciples, cannot make this decision. I have 2 options. I can break away and say, Peter, you go fishing, I'm not going with you. Or I can say, no, I am part of this community. It does not really make sense to me to go fishing now. I think it's going to be a waste of time, but because my superior is saying it, I will go with you. And then all night they fish and catch nothing. So then the members of the community, we told you, no. You cannot say we told you. You cannot say we told you. If you say we told you, it means you have not said from your heart, we will go with you. And if you have not said from your heart, we will go with you, then like Judas, you have broken away. You have pulled apart. So when you say we will go with you, when you accept the decision of the superior or the provincial, then you must accept the responsibility, even if that enterprise does not meet with the success we thought it would meet. We accept responsibility. We feel charged up because we have not succeeded, and we work harder. That is what it means, we will go with you. Because we realize that if you said, I told you not to go, you didn't catch anything, we noticed that by the end of this episode, they catch 153 fish. So now who is right? Now will you go and apologize to the superior and say, I'm so sorry I criticized you, I was wrong? That you will not do. Will you go to the provincial and say, sorry, sister, you really took the wise decision, even though I did not see it, and I was the one who criticized you, but you were right? Will you say that? No. So even though initially it seems like their enterprise is a failure, at the end of this episode, John chapter 21, verses 1 to 15, we realize it is a success. And so therefore, if we say, we will go with you, because we are not in that position to take decisions and others will take the decisions for us, then we must really go with them and accept equally challenges in that particular enterprise or ministry or apostolate, or we must accept success, and both with equanimity. And finally, optimism. In Mark chapter 4, verses 3 to 9, Jesus tells the parable of the sower. And in that parable of the sower, there are 4 kinds of soil. There is the path, there is the rocky ground, there are the thorns, and there is the good soil. The result of sowing the seed in 3 kinds of soil is loss. The path, the birds eat it up. The rocky ground, it does not have much depth and so withers away. Among the thorns, they grow up and choke them. So in 3 kinds out of the 4, in 75%, the result is loss. It is only in 25% that the result is gain, the good soil. And yet the gain is 30, 60, 100. If you were to ask a farmer at the time of Jesus, what is the yield you are expecting from your field? The farmer would say, I'm expecting 6, that is 6 kilos of grain for every kilo of seed. And if God is good, if the rains are good, then I might even get an yield of 8. You notice, Jesus does not start with 6 or 8. He starts with 30, 60, 100. Does this man know anything about agriculture? Jesus is not talking about agriculture. He's talking about life. In the ministry that we do, in the children that we reach, in the teachers that we reach, in the people that we help, 75% of them might not even say a thank you. It is just 25 or even less, and even less, which will be appreciated or will even acknowledge or who will be helped. Our job is not to worry as optimists about the 75%. Our job is not to worry about the path, not to worry about the rocky ground, not to worry about the thorns. We keep sowing. Our job as optimists is to keep sowing and let the Lord make it grow. We do what we have to do. We do our best, and the Lord will do the rest. And so, my sisters, on this day, when we are reflecting about repentance, let us ask the Lord to give us these attitudes. These are attitudes which I have suggested. It is likely that you may have some other attitudes which you can enhance. And I would even suggest that during your daily examine, you can use these 5 attitudes or other attitudes which you are able to think about and mark on a scale of 1 to 10 during your examine in the afternoon and at night. Where am I with regard to this attitude? Do I and did I look at others, especially the members of my community, as Jesus looked at Peter? Will I enhance, build up, encourage rather than correct? Carefrontation. Different parts of one body. Will I do what I have to do because I believe that it must be done, and it gives me a deep sense of joy? The passion and resurrection prediction of Jesus, the Son of Man, must suffer. Will I, even if I do not agree with the decision, but it is taken by the one in authority, whether the superior, whether the provincial, will I accept that decision and say to the one who has taken that decision, we will go with you? Will I sow without ceasing in the hope that the Lord will make it grow? Glory be to the Father, and to the Son, and to the Holy Spirit, as it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit.